Total Recall by Levanon and Alakazam Magic gives your spectators the power to supposedly look through the entire deck of cards and tell you the only one that's missing. Is this effect right for you? Stick around, because today we're going to find out. We're going to try a little observation test with a deck of cards. Now, as I go through the cards, I want you to pay attention to every single card. Try to remember and take in as much info as you can. And if there's anything that you spot, make sure to make a mental note of it so we can come back to it after. Perfect. Now, did anything call out to you? Did anything jump out to you? Yes, there was one face down card, correct. Now, of all the cards, do you remember seeing less picture cards, as in jacks, queens, and kings, or less number cards? Less picture cards. Good. Well, there's actually less picture cards in a deck. Now, that you got correct. Now, do you remember not seeing as much of jacks, queens, or kings? Queens. And do you remember not seeing one queen, like a club, a heart, a spade, or a diamond? The spade, the queen of spades, you remember not seeing that. Well, the crazy thing is, there are some queens here that you did see, like the queen of diamonds, there's the face down card, and there's the queen of clubs, but there's one queen that I haven't seen in any of these cards, and that is the queen of spades, because you said you didn't see one card, the queen of spades, and that's the only one that was turned upside down. And you can hand out some of these cards, they can check, make sure they're ordinary, and that is Total Recall. You're totally reset. I hope you all enjoyed that performance of Total Recall. What do you get when you buy Total Recall? When you purchase Total Recall, you get this nice box. Inside the box, you get your red bicycle rider back, Total Recall gimmicked deck, and you get the link to the tutorial. Also, I just wanted to mention that Alakazam Magic now has a United States warehouse ran by the amazing Chris James. So if you live in the US, you can order from Alakazam today, and the shipping's a whole lot faster, and it ships from the US, which is a lot better. But now, back to the review. What is the quality of the gimmick? The gimmicked deck is very well made. There are multiple methods at play with the deck, which is really fun. The deck is printed on red bicycle rider back design, and one of the methods involved does have something that could wear out over time. Once that special something does wear out, you can definitely replace it though, because it's something that most magicians have. However, it is really well made, and I think it should last you a very long time. And I really like Alakazam's magic stuff. I haven't had a single thing that I bought or got from Alakazam Magic that I didn't enjoy a lot. I recently reviewed Sticks by Eric Stevens, so go check that out after this. But yeah, Alakazam always has some really nice, strong and commercial magic. Now, how's the tutorial? The tutorial is 45 minutes long, around there. It is downloadable and streamable. Levanon goes through a lot of stuff, including the system at play here, as well as what to do if you accidentally mix up the deck or drop the cards. He's with someone else, and they both teach the tutorial. It is quite thorough. They go through everything you need to know with this, and the system here is very interesting. It's different, very different from your standard invisible deck. You can hand out packets of cards for the spectators to check out, and the system's definitely a little bit more complex than the standard invisible deck, but it is really easy to learn at the same time. There are also some really nice subtleties with this that don't exist with the regular invisible deck. For example, the face down card is always in pretty much the same position in the deck of cards every single time. This is very strong, and I really love the simplicity of the effect and the strength. It really puts the spectator in the limelight. It makes them look like the hero. And one thing to note is that the spectator cannot name any card in the deck that they didn't see. They have a choice between all 12 face cards. However, the wording used to get them to do so, to name a picture card, works 100% of the time. No matter how they respond to that question, you base the effect off it. So it's one round of simple equivocate, but it will never be suspected because the wording that you end up using, you use that same wording for the rest of the routine. So yeah, the equivocate is just one phase and it is very, very convincing. Is this a social media or a real life effect? I would say this is more of a real life effect because it doesn't have that visual element that you would need for social media. But yes, this is very strong for real life magic, and it can be used in a lot of different situations, which we will discuss more in a short bit. Now, what are the angles like? The angles for Total Recall are really good. This depends on the variation you're using because in the tutorial, Liam teaches multiple variations. One of them has about 180 degrees angles. You won't want people behind you. The other one can be performed completely surrounded, so that one's more ideal for busking situations or cocktail situations where you don't really have much control over the angles. But both variations are really convincing and they're both pretty much the same. Are there live performances in the tutorial? Yes, there are multiple live performances in the tutorial that were shot at the Blackpool Magic Convention, which was nice. And yes, this gets really good reactions from magicians and lay people alike. Is this examinable? Now, this is a hot question because the invisible deck, the original invisible deck, was completely not examinable. This, you're giving out some gimmicked cards to the spectator, and you can hand out some cards. You can't hand out the spectator's named card, the one they named, which when I showed you it was the Queen of Spades, I believe. You can't hand out that card. However, you can hand out some cards above and below that card. You can hand out like a top packet and a bottom packet. Now, you won't want them to look at it for an extended period of time. If they look at it for like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, they won't find anything. But if they're thoroughly examining the cards, then it is possible that they do get an inkling of the method, or one of the methods at least. But the way this is structured, it's unlikely that the spectators will want to examine the deck of cards because if you do a deck switch or something, then there's less heat on the deck anyways. You wouldn't even really need to do a deck switch so you could hand it out. There's not much heat on this deck of cards. It just feels like an observation test, really, because the way it's routine, you're putting the spectator in the limelight, so they wouldn't really want to examine the deck of cards. It's not one of those tricks that's so impossible, like a deck color change or something like that, that they'll say, give me those cards. It feels more to the spectators like you're giving them an impossible ability to remember every single card and to single out the one that wasn't there. So yeah, I wouldn't hand out the deck of cards. You can hand it out. You can hand some of the cards out, but that feels mostly like a magician thing that you would show magicians. You would hand out some of the cards to magicians. I doubt lay people would actually want to examine the cards. But let's talk about the difficulty and practicality of Total Recall. This is not difficult at all. The sequence is very easy to remember, and once you know it, it is easy to use. It's not something you're going to easily forget. And this is also very practical for walk-around magic, close-up, and maybe even can be scaled to a parlor show depending on the presentation. Is there any DIY required? No, there's no DIY required whatsoever. The custom deck of cards comes ready to go right out of the box. Pocket space. All you have to carry in your pocket is the gimmicked deck of cards. Now, I know that is a downside for some people because there are a lot of gimmicked decks of cards out there, so it's hard to choose just one or just two. Now, you can't do any other tricks with this deck, but if you plan on using this, it is well worth the pocket space because I think if you carry an invisible deck around on a regular basis, this replaces an invisible deck. This, in my opinion, is better than an invisible deck because it feels less of a magic trick and more of giving your audience this impossible power. Now, of course, this will be up to preference. This will be up to the performer's preference, up to your preference, what you use, but I personally really like this over the invisible deck. Now, what is the reset like? This trick actually resets instantly, meaning it can be repeated from table to table and you don't have to reset at all, which is very good. What should this retail for? Currently, Total Recall retails for $40 US on the Alakazam Magic website. Now, do I think this is worth the price? I think a standard invisible deck costs much less. It's less than 10 bucks. So for this special deck, I think it could have definitely been a bit cheaper. It would have been a lot better at maybe 30 US dollars. However, if you can see yourself performing this, I don't think cost should be too much of an issue, because if you do this at gigs and stuff, this will pay for itself. What are the pros and cons? The pros are this has a lot of great subtleties that just aren't there with the invisible deck. It really puts the spectator in the spotlight as well. And it feels less of a magic trick. And it feels more like you're giving your spectator the magic, the magical ability. Also, this is very easy to do. It resets instantly, great angles, it's very powerful. No table is required. This can be scaled up to maybe even a parlor or stage show if you want to do some pseudo false memory thing where, oh, you thought you saw the king of clubs, but you couldn't because that was the only one that was face down. So it all depends on how you scale it. Also, there's very little equivocate, and the equivocate that is there is very good. It works every single time. And some playing cards can be examined. Again, I don't think the examination should be too much of an issue for the spectators. They shouldn't even want to check it out. But if you're performing for magicians, you can hand out a few just casually after the effect, just to prove kind of that this isn't your standard invisible deck. This is something different. The cons are the deck isn't fully examinable, which again shouldn't be too much of an issue. I just wanted to bring it up. Also, only one trick can be done with this deck of cards, and it's a tad expensive. Also, they only have a choice of all the picture cards, like the jacks, queens, and kings. They can't name the number cards. Again, the equivocate makes this feel like a really free choice. They feel like they could have said any of the 52 playing cards in a deck, but I just wanted to mention that. But what percent am I giving Total Recall? Total Recall by Levanon and Alakazam Magic gets a 93% from me. I recommend it, especially if you already do Invisible Deck. This feels like a step above that. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.